And welcome to another episode of GamerHeads. My name is Roger, aka Rogue Leader 76, and with me this week are my co-host Mike,
aka Pezman Mike,
and my other co-host Christian,
aka Fulgan.
Unfortunately, Blue wasn't able to make it this week, but she'll join us again next week. But we do have a big show for you, not the wrestler, as I always mention.
Whoa. I caught that. I knew what you were going with that.
Thanks. Christian, do you even know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
You know? Okay.
I do.
But we do have a lot to cover this week. We have a couple of reviews. So we'll be providing reviews for the Caligula Effect Overdose and also for Wargroove as well. So we'll go through that. We do have some news. So some items there. We have our listener feedback. And we'll go through your listener feedback from last week. And then we also have our hot topic. And in honor of International Women's Day, we're going to be talking about who our top 5 female video game characters of all time are. So that'll be our hot topic this week. But before we get into all of that, we do have an icebreaker. And our icebreaker this week, since Nintendo's 2-year anniversary just happened, Nintendo Switch, not Nintendo's. Nintendo Switch's 2-year anniversary just happened. I'd like to know, what is your favorite Switch game currently?
There are so many good options on that.
No,
if I were to
right?
go by, and I checked my stats, if I were to go by time played, I've already put in, and I know, Christian, for you, this is like a drop in the bucket, but I put in over 65 hours into Stardew Valley.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I was like, oh, wow, okay. Well, that's that's a lot of time. But in terms of my favorites, well, Breath of the Wild is definitely there, but when I really think about it, I have to say, like, I've had a lot of fun with Golf Story.
Oh, yeah, that's a good game.
Yeah, and that's it's just, it's different. It's a different type of game, it's a golf RPG with a sense of humor. So, and
yeah. A dark sense of humor.
Very dark sense of humor.
Yeah.
So
the one part that I'm stuck on that game right now, Mike, is it's not very far, but I'm stuck on the frisbee, the disc golf.
Oh yes, I had to do that a lot.
Oh my gosh!
Before I got the hang of it.
Yeah, it's so awkward.
Yeah, that is a tough part to get through. But and I thought the game wasn't going to be that long, but there's a lot of story in it, and there's a lot to do. I'm at a part right now where I'm playing against Lara in like an actual game, and I just cannot beat her. Like, she gets to a point where she's like, seriously, she goes like Super Saiyan or something, and I'm just like, all right, this is really tough. But I still enjoy it. So Golf Story, and if you're a fan of physical copies, Best Buy has the limited run games physical version of it.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yep.
One thing I do wish that game did offer was online or multiplayer. That would have been really cool. That would have been really cool. But it's a good game. I like it regardless. But that would have been over the top awesome for that game.
Yeah.
Nice. What about you, Christian? What is your favorite Nintendo Switch game so far?
That's tough for me to say. I think it could be a toss-up between any number of things. If it was just by hours played, it would be Smash Ultimate at 70 plus hours. But I wouldn't say that that's my favorite Switch game. If I had to pick one, it would probably be Breath of the Wild, because that's boring. That's the boring choice, but it's the obvious one for me. Someone who's grown up playing open world games, and really someone who really enjoys the way that Nintendo was able to reinvigorate a genre that they had really never taken a stab at in the past, and simultaneously pay homage to the original Legend of Zelda. I mean, it's just like the perfect idea and concept, and it's got plenty of flaws, but I love it regardless. Bayonetta 2 would probably be a close second for me. That game's fantastic.
Yeah, I didn't play that one at all, so
highly recommend it. I got it on Wii U and Switch. Loved it both times.
Nice. Cool. For myself, boy, this is hard because there are a lot of really good Switch games. I think one that I really love going back to is the SNK 40th Anniversary Collection. Because there's a lot. There's like 23 games, I think, something like that. There's a lot of games in that collection. And and one of the games that I didn't realize how much I was gonna love it until I started playing it was Crystalis. That game is so good. That game alone is worth just a collection, but there's a lot of good games in that collection, and it's cool because it has a lot of cool artwork too in the collection.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of history in that. So I think this is the weird part, but like I don't know, it kind of snapped like a nostalgia, like, I don't know, thing inside me. Like I started like really liking nostalgia games because of it, like retro games because of it. It's weird. But like I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and then I wanted to go play more like retro type games. So yeah, so I would have to say that's the game that I keep going back to. Like when I look at my list, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna play this game. This looks fun, and yeah. So there's just a lot to offer in that game. Yeah. So listeners, what are your favorite Nintendo Switch games? So you can get a hold of us. Christian, how can people send us a tweet?
At GamerHeads PC on Twitter.
And then they can also get a hold of us on email.
At info@gamerheadspodcast.com.
And on Facebook.
Facebook.com/GamerHeadsPodcast.
Yeah. So, reach out to us. And you can also go on our website as well. It's GamerHeadPodcast.com. And you can let us know what your favorite Switch game has been in the last 2 years. So happy birthday to the Nintendo Switch. All right, let's move on to our GamerHeads news flash then. So I have a couple items here. And then obviously... if you guys have things that you want to bring up, please do so. So the first one that I have here is actually from Kotaku. And this one states that Anthem players say the game is crashing their PS4s. Oh no. So some of the players are saying that their systems are actually being bricked because of the game. And then EA has actually posted a response on Twitter to this. And the response is, we are aware of crashing issues. Some of you have been reporting for Anthem game. The best part is that they hashtag Anthem game. It's like,
yeah, that's
yeah.
Like, I don't know if you really want to hashtag that game in response to the game crashing, but okay. We're investigating and ask that you share your crash data reports when prompted. If you have, we'll be reaching out to you to gather info. If not, please reply on this thread. So, yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I like how they acknowledge that like the game is crashing, but they're not acknowledging that it's actually bricking their systems. Share your crash data reports. Okay, how's that going to be possible when my system is essentially a brick?
Yeah, and I guess there is some workarounds around it to get it back running, but jeez. Like, and I guess no other consoles are facing this right now. It's just PS4s, which is also kind of strange. But how does that go into production? How does a big game like that go into production without being like thoroughly tested?
Especially with EA, arguably the biggest publisher out there.
Yeah. Christian, how does that happen?
It's possible for a game to brick a system. I think with Anthem in particular, the issue was that there was a bug that would cause your PS4 to shut off, and it would shut off in a manner that, in the same way as unplugging the PS4 from the wall, and doing so makes it have to like take some time to recover. And I guess there's a slim chance that when that happens, it causes a bricked console, and that's very bad. I mean, this is kind of like a Fallout 76 situation where, in addition to, pooping on everyone by giving them canvas bags, or I'm sorry, what was it? Nylon bags instead of canvas. Yeah. Then like they had a credential leak immediately afterwards, which is something that happens to other companies. Other games have crashes that happen, but it's just like another pile of poop on an already bad scenario.
And considering that this game was supposed to be like, they were heavily promoting this game at the end of last year. And this was one game that I was actually looking forward to. I remember we talked about games that we're looking forward to this year. I think we did that at the end of last year. Mm-hmm. And Anthem was one of those games. And guess who didn't pick it up? I didn't pick it up.
Oh,
yeah.
Did you pick it up, Christian? Did you play it?
I subscribed to EA Origin Access Premier, so I got access to it for 30 months for $15. I mean, not 30 months, 30 days, 1 month.
And you're not buying it?
No.
Nope.
Very happily not.
Yeah. So you're right. I mean, it's weird. Like it's just when it rains, it pours, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Mike, do you want to take the next one?
Sure. This one comes to us from Polygon. Another unreleased NES game has been discovered. And this one spotlights 1980s pro wrestling. So the game was called UWC Wrestling, which stands for Universal Wrestling Corporation. The game features a lot of WCW wrestlers, and apparently Ted Turner was going to call NWA, which he purchased, the UWC, but then changed the name to WCW. So some of the wrestlers include the Road Warriors, Animal and Hawk, Sting, Barry Windham, and Ric Flair. Woo. UWC Wrestling, the ROM, will be released to the public, says the person who found this.
So that's awesome. First of all,
That's cool. I would love to see how that plays.
Yeah, I saw some of the screenshots. I don't know if you guys saw some of the screenshots.
Mm-hmm.
It looked very much like tag team wrestling or muscle wrestling. Do you remember those games?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Tag team wrestling was not good, but yeah, I mean, like the character select screen though looked pretty cool. You could actually tell which of the characters were, and I was like, oh, this is neat. Yeah, I don't know. This is a little dark, not a dark secret, but this is a little unknown fact about me. I guess not really a dark secret. But I want to say it's a dark.
Oh, I want to hear the dark secrets.
Well, I'm a wrestling fan. I don't know if that's
I like wrestling. I grew up on wrestling. I used to watch, the Saturday morning, cartoon with the wrestling the superstars. I used to watch it all the time. And I one of my favorite games was on the NES was Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, Pro Wrestling was great.
It's and I'm actually still upset that they never included Starman and Smash.
Yeah.
Or even, and when the news came out a few months ago or last month that Nintendo was working on reviving that rumor that they were reviving a little known Nintendo IP, I secretly wish that it was a pro wrestling game or something.
That would have been awesome, wouldn't it have been?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was this wrestling game. I don't remember what it's called, but there was one in the arcades that you would have a manager, and your manager would if you picked a manager, the certain manager would throw in his walking stick, and then you could use that against your opponent. It was so cool.
Was it WrestleFest?
I don't know.
Or Survivor Series, Royal Rumble?
It wasn't WWE. It wasn't it was just a made up wrestling league.
Okay.
But it was so good, and that's why I was kind of hoping something like this would have been found. Hey, guess what we found in a ROM of that game somewhere. But yeah, I love wrestling games, and I recently got Fire Pro Wrestling, which I've been enjoying.
Yeah.
World, and I just picked up for $20. I picked up the manager or the promoter thing where you can promote your own league. You can create your own leagues and set up matches and stuff like that. So I'm super excited to be playing through that.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, this really intrigues me that this game was going to come out on the NES and that somebody found it. That's the crazy part to me, that somebody still finds these games. Oh, look what I found. That's so intriguing.
Yeah, that's crazy. It is. It belongs in a museum. That's what I'm gonna say. That's where I'm gonna throw it out there. I'll throw that quote out there.
So do you.
Oh, isn't that an insult?
Yeah, that's what he said. It's an Indiana Jones reference.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's another 80s reference, Retro City Rampage had.
Yeah.
Probably would have went over my head.
Yep.
Yep. So cool. Christian, you want to take the last? You want to take the last item here?
Sure. Happy Mari 10 Day. Mar 10. Is that what it is? Mar 10?
Yeah, I guess.
March 10th? Mario?
Sure.
Because it looks like Mario?
Yeah.
To celebrate, Nintendo has some discounts on games and some sweet Switch packages available at retailers like Best Buy and GameStop. You can learn more at GamerHeadsPodcast.com.
Yeah.
So we were having a discussion about that earlier today, and I just, as an old school gamer and as a lover of the physical copies, I am so torn. But I really think I might want to pick up New Super Mario Brothers U. But I don't know.
Yeah, me too. I guess the thing I didn't realize that they weren't available on the Switch eShop,
Mm-hmm.
and it's only you only have the electronic or the digital codes available to you at the stores. So that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's only 2.5 gig for New Super Mario,
Yeah, that's true.
so that doesn't take up a whole lot of space.
Yeah.
But
$40 is probably a better price for that game than $60.
exactly. I would not pay. Yeah, I wouldn't pay 60 for it. But I think 40 is much better. But
Mm-hmm.
oh man, it's such a tough decision.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, I don't know.
There's a
Mario, have
similar.
anything else?
Yeah, Mario Party's on sale too.
Yeah,
And
Mario
Odyssey.
Parties. Yeah.
Yeah.
In case you don't have that, in case you're one of the people who doesn't have Odyssey yet.
In the Switch, the Switch that's for sale, you can get it for $329, I think it is. Then it comes with one. You can select one of those games.
Yeah.
That's not bad. Not bad at all.
So that's pretty awesome.
A similar situation happened with Octopath Traveler, I think it was. That went on sale digital only for like $40
Really?
a few weeks ago. Yeah, and I was tempted because, I've been meaning to pick up Octopath Traveler, but I was like, no, I want the physical copy. I put my foot down and then I waited.
I got the digital copy.
I almost bought the $100 limited edition, but I'm like, but then I was like, it's a
There's some
pop-up
money
book
bags.
and not the entire soundtrack, so
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
I just went with the regular.
I think the thing that for me that I do like having digital copies though is because it's like right there, so I don't have to worry about flipping out cartridges and stuff like that. That's one thing I don't like. I don't know.
No, I agree with you on that. Like when Animal Crossing comes out, I think I'm gonna get that digitally.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of game I want to be able to just jump in and play for like 20 minutes at a time.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly it. So, but yeah, so those are available, and you can go to our website, like Christian said, and check out more about that, or you can go to Nintendo.com as well and learn more about the different options that they have to offer, different discounts. So.
Yeah, but GamerHeads Podcast is the better link to go to.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, Nintendo references our website. No.
Nintendo puts that as the news. According to GamerHeads Podcast, Nintendo is going to be having a sale.
This is news to us, folks. Do you guys have anything else?
No.
The only thing I have is, and I found this so cool. I found this out yesterday. I saw this yesterday. Was they revived the DuckTales cartoon.
Yeah.
And I tried watching it. I couldn't get into it because I don't know. I'm used to the voices like Huey, Dewey, and Louie. They've got like teenager voices.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just. But then I'm a big voice acting guy, so even when they had like Roger, you and I were talking about this yesterday. Even on the old episodes, the '80s episodes of the Ninja Turtles, when they had like the different people voicing the same characters, like because one was out sick or something. I'm like, this isn't right.
Yeah.
But anyways, I digress. I'm going off on a tangent here. There's an episode, you can find it on YouTube, where one of the characters on the show sings a song to the tune of the Moon song from the DuckTales NES game.
Oh.
And that is one of my favorite video game tracks, and it was just really cool to to just hear it becoming canon, in the DuckTales universe.
Yeah. That's cool. Christian does a really good voice for Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Right?
I wish I did.
Oh, come on, you do.
I wish, Roger.
Yeah, that's cool. Anything else, guys?
Nope.
Nope.
All right, then let's move on. We do have our listener feedback section. So, listeners, if you do want to get a hold of us and give us feedback, we'd love to hear from you. You can send us a tweet at GamerHeadsPC. You can send us an email at info@GamerHeadsPodcast.com. You can also go to Facebook.com/GamerHeadsPodcast, or you can go to our website at GamerHeadsPodcast.com as well and leave us any feedback, either feedback about the show or feedback about our topics. And last week, we asked the question, is it really that important that the PS5 be backwards compatible? And this is what you all had to say. I almost had a southern accent. Y'all had to say. So Christian, you want to take the first one?
Sure. This one's from @BitTray, @8BitTray. I'm sorry. They tweeted, absolutely. I want to play Fatal Frame 2 without having to hook up my PS3. And I agree a lot. I mean, I don't want to have to lug out my PS3 to play my favorite PS3 games, mostly because I have the old, big, fat PS3 that also plays PS2 games, and it's very loud. And I would prefer not having that very loud noise when I'm playing a game. Also, PS4 controllers, you can hook up headphones right into the controller, and that's how I primarily listen to the games I play. And if I could, take that functionality across PS3, PS2, and PS1 games, that would be amazing.
That would be amazing. Yeah, that's a good point. Mike, do you want to take the next one?
Sure. This comes from @Gent71. They tweeted, "We should make an expansion drive accessory that would allow you to play any PlayStation system games off of it." I kind of like that idea, especially if it comes to cost. And I know in the last episode we talked about, would you pay more for the backwards compatibility? And this kind of adds that option to it. Like, hey, if you want, here's our legacy drive or something. Like this will, that way you have options for those who don't want backwards compatibility. You can jump right into your PS5 and just play whatever. But if you want to spend an extra, I don't know, however much they're willing to charge for it, then you can do that.
Yeah. That would be nice. I feel like the problem with that though is that I feel like they'll never do that because they've tried this in the past, like with the Sega tried out like an attachment, right? Didn't they?
The Sega CD was an attachment, and the 32X was an attachment.
Yeah.
So yeah, they had you went full Voltron with that system.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it didn't really work very well. I mean, or at least didn't catch on very well, I should say. Not that it didn't work, but just that people were like, I'm not going to do that.
Well, you had the GameCube adapter where you could hook up for Game Boy Advance games. That's very rare these days. Like, that goes for a pretty penny.
The Game Boy Advance, the hookup itself, but the disc is really that is a hot commodity. And actually, one of my favorite SNES games was the Super Game Boy.
Yeah,
I loved that. I played Kirby's Pinball Land for hours on my TV.
Yeah, that one's on the. Don't they have a Kirby pinball game on the Super NES Classic now too? Yeah, they do.
I think it was Kirby Golf, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, maybe you're
Kirby
right.
Golf thingy.
Yeah, but yeah, those are things I never had either as a kid. I think it's because they were just so expensive. But I don't know. It's weird
because it down, man. Track it down. If you still have your Super Nintendo, track down that Super Game Boy. It is awesome.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, like, I feel like now that we're getting older, like us gamers that are getting older, like we're more willing to spend money on these kind of things. Where I think our parents were like, "Well, I'm not gonna spend money on an extra thing." You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Because not sounds weird, but I feel like we value that more than what our parents did.
Oh yeah. I never tell you the story about how the one of the times that I really, 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 really angered my dad.
Uh-oh.
I didn't have an N64. But I bought Mortal Kombat Trilogy because it was on sale at Best Buy for $40. And so I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna get an N64 eventually. But what I did was, because my parents were so like conservative with their money, I ended up hiding it in my room. And my stupid jerk brother found it and showed it to them.
Oh no!
And my dad had just come back from he went out with some friends to one of the gambling boats. And he came back, and he was all happy. He made, he had he won, he won some. He came back heavier than when he went there. So he was all, and then he saw that and he got really mad because he didn't like spending money on video games.
But he gambled?
Well, and that's the thing. He's like, don't you understand that buying these things are such a waste of time? And I look at him like, oh, and gambling isn't?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize what I said until it was too late.
No.
And I was like, uh-oh. And he's like, and he had this look on his face.
Oh boy.
It was not good, but he was like, he didn't have anything to say. He was like stumbling and stuff. He's like, get out of here.
You lawyered him, man.
That's right, man. That was my one time that I put him in his place.
Since we're on the topic of like parents and stuff like that, so side comment, but my parents, it's so funny that you brought that up because my parents, when we were kids, like my dad was very, conservative with money. My mom was the one that would buy us our video games and our video game systems, but my dad would be the one that was, very conservative and like really upset with the fact that we would buy these things, right? And I feel like I got my mom's impulse buying stuff versus my dad's conservative nature. But a couple of years ago, like, I don't know, like 3 years ago, maybe? Yeah, probably about 3 years ago. My parents were like, we're thinking about buying a new TV. I'm like, okay, well, what do you think? So they wanted to buy like a 65-inch smart TV that has 3D glasses, that could play 3D and stuff. And I'm like, well, why do you need this? You have a Roku player? You don't need a smart TV, Mom and Dad. You already have devices that make it smart. Oh, okay, you're right. You're right. And then what did they do? They went and bought the TV anyway.
They went and bought it anyway.
And I was like, I told you guys, don't buy this TV. And it was just weird because I felt like I was the parent there in that relationship in that moment. So that was really funny. But yeah, no, I feel like it's different, because we value video games now. So I feel like even like retro systems. And somebody asked this, and well, I think that's part of our next questions here. We'll just move right into those next questions. We had a poll as well, and the poll was let me pull it up. A related topic: do we sell any of our old consoles when we buy a new one? And 84% of you said no, and 16% of you said yes. And somebody asked me, are there any sales or anything that you sold that you regret? Because I did sell video games in the past, and I said no, because like anything that I sold when I needed the money, now that I have money, I'm like, I'm just gonna buy it now.
Yeah.
It's weird how that works, but so some of the feedback that we got actually from that poll, I would like to read through some of that. So the first one is from Cardiac Drop, and they tweeted, "Nope, I learned from my past mistakes. Unless it's something that I won't miss. Vintage and older consoles are usually something I hold on to. Hold on to it as long as it's not broken, which nowadays is rare." So yeah, that's a good point. Do you want to take the next one from the True Donnie G, Christian?
Sure. He said, I used to do this, but only because it helped with the cost. Now that I am more of a financially sound adult, I get to keep my old consoles. I even keep the boxes all pristine and tucked away.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of... And the True Johnny G is like right around Mike and I age. And I think that's the same thing as I keep my boxes too. I keep my boxes for all my systems now.
Yep, me too.
Wow.
And again, it's so different than when we were kids. So, Mike, do you want to take the last one from the Purple Shirt Guy?
This comes to us from Purple Shirt Guy, which is a cool name. They tweeted, I usually give them to my younger nieces and nephews or little cousins whose family can't afford them. I love seeing them enjoy the games. That's nice. I love that.
Nice. That is nice.
That's such a better thing to do than giving it into a GameStop for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
So, Purple Shirt Guy, you win Nice Guy of the Week award.
Yes. All right. Well, then let's move on to our review section, then our push select game review section. So, Christian, you reviewed the game Wargroove.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't you give your thoughts on that game?
Sure. I played through Wargroove last week on PC. I finished it. The campaign, and then I played a little bit with the multiplayer, and it's Advanced Wars. Have you guys played Advanced Wars?
I have.
I have.
Well, you've played Wargroove, because Wargroove is Advanced Wars, and it's on the Switch. And
I also played Wargroove.
Did ya? Well, you've played Advanced Wars twice, because Wargroove is Advanced Wars, and Advanced Wars is Wargroove. There's a couple of little more things.
Yeah, because you can make your own campaign and share them with people.
You can, yes. Yeah. And that's really neat. The multiplayer functionality is awesome, especially in a modern Advance Wars equivalent. I think that's rad, and it adds a lot of longevity to a game that's basically Advance Wars. And I think Wargroove being Advance Wars, like a top-down, turn-based strategy game, grid-based, it's simple, it's effective, it's got some fun attack animations. You gotta love seeing the dragons take out the ground troops and watching you just decimate them utterly and completely. Feels good.
Yeah.
But I think the best thing about Wargroove is that it's like Advance Wars, and the worst thing about Wargroove is that it's exactly like Advance Wars because it doesn't really evolve the type of game it is. Yeah. I mean, it's largely Advance Wars. You've got heroes now, so the hero units, I think for most of the missions, if they die, then the mission's over. So you can kind of prioritize yourself around those hero units, but they're also more powerful. So you want to maybe get them out there to try and do some more damage to some units out there. But then you also put your hero unit in harm's way. So there's a good push and pull there. But it's largely pretty simple. I mean, it's Advance Wars, and it can take a long time to get through some of the later levels. I think the story is okay. I'm disappointed in the writing and kind of I'm disappointed in the narrative, is what I should say, because it starts out kind of interesting. Like the first tutorial mission does a really great job of introducing you to a couple of the lore's elements, because you start out playing as the bad person, the antagonist. Yeah. And there's some interesting lore going on with the king that you assassinate. And that's probably the most interesting thing narratively that happens in the whole game, because the rest of it is just kind of hopscotching between these different factions, and then you'll talk to one for a little bit, and then all these conversations happen on the battlefields before and after battles, and I feel like they could have fleshed out the characters more, like had specific moments for certain ones in like non-battlefield situations in order to understand who these people are as people. And there's a great cast of characters here, and that's highlighted in the intro cinematic, which is like hand-drawn animation. It looks like anime, and it's fantastic. Yeah, it's incredible. It's awesome. The purchase price is almost worth it alone for that intro animation. It's fantastic. But the characters don't really do much. They don't get to interact much, and what it ends up boiling down to is you meet new faction with new character. They're like, hey, you're new. I don't like you. You beat them. They're like, oh, okay, you're pretty powerful. I'm going to be with you now. And that's it. You do that 4 more times, and then there's a conclusion at the end, which is slightly more interesting, but it's still a very by-the-numbers situation. You play as the main character is this girl who's the daughter, the princess of the king, and she leads the forces to war against the other faction that killed the king. That's about it. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you think that so what I've heard was that this game was created with their editor, and then they're just like, oh, let's just provide the editor to people as well. Do you feel like that's more of like what they were trying to do, is more provide something like here's a base game that you can play, but feel free to make your own, campaigns and really kind of drive it to, you drive the narrative, you create what you want to create. Do you think that was their intention, or do you think that it was just kind of an afterthought with the campaign creator?
That's an interesting point, Roger. I think that campaign creator is awesome, and I think that's a really great tool and will give a lot of longevity to this game, especially in comparison to the original Advance Wars, where you just kind of just make your own scenarios and just mill through those over and over. I think the campaign doesn't feel like an afterthought. It's pretty significant, and they've crafted these really neat characters for it. Like, there's these really cool characters designs there. The shameful part is that they just don't do much with those really cool characters. They've got great dialogue back and forth, some great banter, but I didn't really get to know or understand any of these characters in a way that I would have with like Iconoclast, for example, which is a Metroidvania, which is fine. But the story is so fantastic and above and beyond what I was even anticipating, which was kind of what I was hoping they would do in Wargroove. Yeah. But they just kind of, the campaign ends up feeling throwaway from a narrative perspective, which is kind of sad.
Well, one other question I do have for you. So you mentioned how, the best thing and the worst thing about it is that it's Advanced Wars. Advanced Art. Advanced Warfare. What is it?
Advance Wars.
Advanced Wars. Yeah. God, I knew it. Okay. Anyway, question: why, if the formula works, why change it?
That's a good question, and I think the reason to change it is because there have been like 3-4 Advance Wars games already.
Yeah. And some of them have not been good though, Christian.
The most recent one on the DS, I think, was pretty good. And I mean, they've been replicating that formula, and I think that's why even those Advanced War games are starting to overstay their welcome. But I think the good thing about it is that a lot of people haven't played these other Advance Wars games, and a lot of people have just played like the original back when it came out towards the like infancy of the Game Boy Advance, and that's kind of what they remember of the franchise. And totally, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And they do to a certain extent, and they add a couple more things here, but still, I think the formula is showing its age. It's a little antiquated with how you move your units and then you attack, and that's it. Like, you just move, attack, and then it kind of gives it this herky-jerky pace. And in later levels where you've got like these armies that you're controlling and that the AI is controlling against you, it ends up being this like enormous slog almost, and it's exhausting, spending like 15, 20, 30 minutes thinking through every meticulous move and figuring out where you're going to put who where. Whereas I feel like modern day strategy games are kind of reining that in a little bit more. Something like XCOM, you've got smaller amounts of units and it feels tighter and more focused as a strategy experience because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Go ahead, Mike.
Have you downloaded and played anybody's custom missions?
I have, yeah. And that's what I think. That's why I ended up really liking Advance Wars. I mean, I'm sorry, Wargroove, aka Advance Wars. That's why I like Wargroove, because I mean, Advance Wars is on the Game Boy Advance. This thing's on the Switch and PC, and there's some pretty awesome user-made content out there that gives this thing a lot of legs, especially for the price. I think it's like $20.
Yeah,
which is awesome. I mean, letting people create whatever Advance Wars maps they want, and you being able to easily access them, that's awesome.
Nice. Now, are they just the levels, or do they actually create their own stories and dialogue too?
That's a good question, Mike. And that's... Go ahead, Roger.
They do both.
Yes.
So they create their own dialogue and their own like cutscenes and stuff like that. So you can do all that in the game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Consider my interest piqued.
Yeah, so one thing I actually kind of... I mean, that's the reason I bought the game, actually. I don't care about the campaign, really.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth. I bought it to do the campaign editor, because I kind of want to do, like, a Dungeons & Dragons style campaign, because you can create a whole campaign in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can do multiplayer, too, so that's really awesome.
Battle against your friends.
Yeah.
And what makes Wargroove different, I guess, is the more medieval, high fantasy setting. So you've got walking skeletons and mages and swords and shields. So that would lend itself well to the D&D thing you're talking about, Roger.
Yeah, that's awesome. So your review's on our site, and what was your final score?
My final score was a B, despite being disappointed in the campaign. I think that this, despite being Advance Wars, also, this is a great way for anyone who hasn't experienced before or has only experienced the first one and wants to get back into it. This is a great way to pick it up and play it, and there's some great user-generated content out there.
Nice. Cool.
Nice.
Thanks, Christian.
No
the
problem.
game that I am going to review is I played on the Switch, and it is the Caligula Effect Overdose. I believe it's also on the PlayStation 4, but I played it on the Switch. And it is a JRPG. Very much your traditional JRPG.
Turn-based?
Well, kind of. I'll get into the combat, because it's different. So that's probably the most unique thing about the game. So just to give a little background of the game. So you are a high school student, and you are going through a commencement ceremony. And you look, so this is all in anime, so it's kind of cool. It's like all anime-esque, like you were saying with Wargroove. And you look in, like, the principal or one of the teachers or whatever, is like, their face is all, like, digitized. It looks weird, like, their face is all, like, weird looking, and your character, like, freaks out and takes off running. And then some of the students in the crowd are like, huh, that's interesting, so they can see that as well. And that's how the game starts. It's like, what the heck is going on? Just very, very traditional Japanese kind of like, oh, this is weird and awkward. But it turns out you are trapped in like this virtual reality world that this character created, two characters actually created, and they were trying to save people from their own pain and misery, and they created this world, and now you're in this world, and you join this group called the Go Home Club. and I don't want to get into too much because like I don't want to give spoilers. But anyway, they are trying to go back home, and you are trying to figure out how to go back home. And the way that this world is created is around music. So like the creator of this world, like all their followers like are attracted to or turned into like these. They call them. Did you something? I forgot the name.
Digimon, digital monsters.
Yeah, not Digimon. I want to call them.
That's where I was
Digimons.
going.
But they're like these digitized forms of themselves, and they are like lured by the music. So they are kind of turned evil, I guess, by this music, and the music is really good. Like that's the thing. I'm like, this music's fantastic. And then your character, and then also the characters that you start finding through their pain and misery, they unlock. Remembering their pain and misery from their world, they unlock their superpowers or their super abilities. So it's a cool concept. It's a unique story. I really liked the story a lot in this game. And that's what I want to talk about next is the combat. So you asked about the turn-based. So this is such a unique combat style. So every combat you go into, you can do this thing what they call like preview of your attacks. Mm-hmm. So you can actually set it up so you take in each character you can attack the enemies, and you can set it up that you can see what the outcome could possibly be. So it's not fortune telling. They even say that like don't think this is like telling the fortune or the future, because this is not necessarily how it's going to go. You might miss or something else might happen, but the probability of this happening is pretty high. And then when you attack the enemies, you can actually line up your attacks with your rest of your party to link these all together, chain these attacks all together. And that's super cool. Like, it's so fascinating. So you can kind of see it happening before you actually execute the attacks. And what a cool battle system that is. I mean, it's so awesome. So a lot of times, like, I'm not even taking damage because I'm able to set up my attacks in a certain way that I pop a guy up in the air, and then one of my other guys has this ability when it shoots them in the air, it does more damage to them. And so I'm able to take out a lot of enemies that way. So I really like that combat. Like that's probably the besides the music and the voice acting, that's probably one of the strongest parts of the game, and one of the most unique parts of the game. So some of the other things that I liked about the game too is that for a JRPG, so JRPGs, some people don't like them because they're really hard to like navigate, right? Because like they're kind of complicated and they're not easy to play. But this gameplay is really simple. I was like, this is like such a great game for people that want to get into JRPGs but don't know where to start. Like I think this is a really great game to begin with, because as you level up your characters, you get skill points, and you can use those skill points for anybody. It doesn't have to be just one character. So like you can level up like every person's special abilities with these skill points. And that's awesome. I think that's such a cool concept, instead of like each person having, their own skills that they're like progressive bars. You actually determine how you're going to progress your characters with the skill points you earn. So I really like that. And then the other thing that this game does offer is there's like these trap souls that you can find throughout the game, and you get to beat these enemies that are kind of defending these trap souls. And these are really like the items that you find in the games, and then they give you different abilities, ups your stats for different things. So like one might be defense, one might be attack, or some of your special moves, or some of your, for the lack of a better term, like your mana or your SP. So, so it's really easy to get into, and it's not complicated, and there's enough tutorial that kind of walks you through the game. When you come across something new, even like they'll walk you through like, oh, this is how you can use this character and their shields and stuff like that. So I really like that about the game. As I mentioned, the music is outstanding. There's so the whole premise is that these people are being drawn or converted to, or staying in this virtual reality based on the music that this the one of the villains is. I don't want to call her a villain, but I don't want to get too much into it. But, but that she's singing, and they're attracted to it. And in each level, like, you're fighting against different musicians, and to get closer to like the head bad guy or the head boss person. And each level has different music and it's like lyrics, and it's so well done. Like the music is so good. It's outstanding. So that is one of the strongest parts of the game as well. I love the music and the voice acting too. The voice acting is absolutely fantastic. It's all in Japanese, but there's obviously subtitle. But it's so good. And then even after you beat a battle, like your characters will talk to each other, but they're saying Japanese. That's not that's not in subtitles. So I don't know what they're saying actually. But it's so cool that they interact with each other and they're like yelling stuff at each other. It's cool. Like it's such a great aspect of the game. And then the other thing I really like about it is that, like I mentioned, the story. The story is really intriguing. Mm-hmm. So just this concept that, this world is created to basically relieve people of the pain and misery of the real world, but your characters are like, and that's like the dialogue you have. You can actually choose your dialogue that you have with some of the characters you run into, and you try to convince them, like, that's part of life. The pain and misery is part of life, and we want to go home, and we don't want to be stuck in this, this alternate universe or this reality that you created. And of course, they want to keep you there because you destroying that is unraveling their world that they're creating themselves. In the character interactions, I don't want to get too much into this because there's some aspects of the game that I'm just like, oh, this is so cool. Like I want people to experience it, but just some things that happen in the games where you interact with a certain character, and then something happens, and you're like, oh, this is so cool. This is so great. Like I can't get into too much of it, but otherwise it's going to spoil the game. But
yeah,
but just the fact that the story is so interesting and the character interaction is so great. I really loved that. So that was my tips and my tops. The things that the category of the flip and the flop, I guess, if you will. So the game does start off a bit slow. There's a lot of story in the beginning of the game, so we just go through that, just trog through that stuff. You'll get through it. There's not a whole lot of gameplay right in the beginning, and really just like any kind of JRPG, they kind of throw you into like a mess of like, what the heck is going on here? And for the first, I don't know, probably half an hour, you're kind of like, I have no idea what's going on. But then as you start playing, you're like, oh, this is interesting. This is really fascinating. So just get through that first, 20 minutes to 30 minutes or so, and you'll be fine. The other thing that was kind of weird was some of the dialogue is a bit strange, I would say, especially in this day and age. So there's one character that you run into, and she is heavy set, and in the you run into some people that are like, oh, so she's like a popular person in this world, in this virtual reality, and some of the people that are turned, or that are embedded into this world, they're like, oh, she's so beautiful, she's so pretty, I really love her. And your characters are like, she's fat. Why is she pretty? Geez. That's not pretty at all. That's not cute. Not in the real world. That's fat. And I'm like, like, that's very shallow. Then I'm beginning to think, like, am I really a good guy here? Or am I a bad person? So that was kind of interesting, especially since in our world that we live in now, I guess,
you get a lot of pretty big reaction to something like that.
Yeah, that I was taken aback by that. I mean, and I think it's just part of the quirky humor that they're trying to get at, but that one seemed to kind of miss the mark. I mean, a lot of it is very funny and just kind of weird and goofy, but that one I felt like kind of missed the mark. The other thing that I will mention is that, well, these are all minor things because I really love the game a lot. But one thing that I will say is that the dungeons, you can get lost very easily in the dungeon because the dungeons, all of it kind of looks the same, make it hard for you to understand where your bearings are and know exactly where you are. There is a mini map that you can kind of follow, but the problem with the mini map, so there's little like exclamation points of where you're supposed to go. But if you're nowhere near the exclamation points, you're not really sure where you're supposed to go. And a lot of the world kind of looks the same. Mm-hmm. And there are some times where you can use landmarks, but the hard part with the landmarks is that you might run across one and you're like, this kind of looks the same as before, and then the enemies that you defeated, enemies will respawn. So like you can't really use there's no enemies here, so I must have cleared this area out, because nope, that's not the case. They're gonna respawn on you. So I will say it took me a while to get through just the first dungeon itself, because I was just like, I'm so lost, I have no idea what I'm doing. But then I started realizing, like, okay, this is how I gotta play this game. I kind of just the first dungeon I kind of just went back and did a lot of things and tried to figure out things, and ran into a lot of different areas that I probably shouldn't have been in at that time because I wasn't high enough level. Then going forward after that, I'm like, okay, I just gotta like move forward instead of like just randomly explore like I was doing in the first dungeon. But the game is super deep. That was the other thing that is amazing about this game. So you can play through this game and just take on the villains, take on the bosses, and go each dungeon. There's also like over 100 different characters you can recruit onto your team.
Oh, wow.
And they're all interconnected. And they had like this huge like mind map kind of thing on your phone. You have this phone that tells you about the game, about like what's going on and stuff. And it's called Wired, I guess. And keep track of like everybody that you're connected to. And you can go around and just like interact with people. So you can spend a lot of time interacting with them and moving up their friend level with you. So that way you can start recruiting them. So that's also in the game as well. So you can spend as much time as you want on that. But yeah, so it's a deep game.
I believe, Roger, Caligula, you're playing Caligula Effect Overdose. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
I think it's a remake of a PlayStation Vita game.
Yes.
Did that expose itself to you at all in terms of like structure? Did it feel very segmented for portable play in any way?
No, I didn't think so. I mean, no, I didn't at all. I mean, I thought it played really well, and I thought, I mean, I played it both handheld mode, and then I also threw it up on the TV as well, just to see what the performance would be like and such too.
Yeah.
It was fine. Is that what you were asking though? Like,
did it feel like a Vita game?
Yeah, like a lot of times portable games are structured in like a more mission-based format or in more segmented chunks, so that they lend themselves better to isolated play sessions where you can pick it up and play for 15 minutes, be done for a while, and then do that over and over.
No, I didn't feel that way. So there's plenty of save points, and I will say save your game as much as you can, because there are some enemies that you might run into, especially like early on in the game, where they're super high level, and like I plan to go back and defeating those guys as I go back and through some of these dungeons, because I didn't beat all the bad guys I probably could have. But I didn't feel like it was segmented in any way, like, oh, this is just for like short rounds of play, like or short segments, if you will, for like handheld mode. I felt like this. I actually thought that it translated very well for like a console game, actually.
Interesting.
So my review is not up on the site yet, but it will be shortly. But I will give you my grade right now. I'm going to give it a B+, because I really like the game a lot. For a JRPG, I think it's really accessible for people to play. I think the story is really interesting. The combat system is absolutely amazing. Like, that's probably one of the strongest things. The music is really good, and voice acting is really good. I mean, the things that I said that, I downgraded the game for were not terrible, not things that I would say like, oh, like this is a terrible game because of that.
But still worth a call out.
Yeah, still worth a call out. Yeah. I mean, but overall, I loved my experience in the game, and I think that fans of JRPGs would like this game, but I think even people that have never played a JRPG, I think this is a game that you should give it a shot. I think that games like Persona 5 can be very intimidating, and I think this is like the answer to those that are looking for something that's like Persona 5, but not as intimidating as Persona 5.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, then let's move on to the games that we are currently playing. And Mike, actually, let's start with you, since Christian and I were just talking for the last, 15 minutes or so.
I was good. I had my feet up. I was enjoying the conversation. I only played a small handful of games. So I played some more of 12 is Better Than 6.
Yeah.
The Old West top-down shoot 'em up style game, and I am getting through it, and it's still an enjoyable experience. I will have the review up. One of the things I like about it is that you can choose whether or not if you want to be stealthy or if you want to just go crazy in each of the levels. The only problem is if you're going to go all out, you better make sure you're a really good shot, because it's one hit kill.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, and it can get really tough if you're doing that. And I remember I was playing, and I momentarily forgot which button was the shoot button, so I accidentally threw some dynamite, and that alerted everybody to my presence. I didn't make it very much further after that, so I had to restart it. But so I'm still playing through that. I'm also trying to take part in the Tetris 99 competition this weekend. I haven't got a single win. I did get second place a couple times, but
nice.
Still didn't get a W in that column. So, but that's okay. I'm still having fun with it. And then the other game I played. So, Roger, I told you yesterday that yesterday I went to a birthday party.
Yeah.
It was one of my close friends from high school and college. It was his daughter's first birthday, and he had the party at level 256, which is a Pac-Man themed restaurant owned by
cool.
Namco.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So and it's so they've got, it's kind of like a Dave and Buster's type situation. They've got games, but they also have, they got the ticket redemption games, and but they've also got coin op games, and pinball machines, and bowling. So, we went to the party, and we played we did some bowling, and I played some like Galaga and some Addams Family pinball and stuff. But there was one game that I played that I loved and simultaneously made me angry at the same time.
Tetris?
And what that? Tetris, yeah. I played Tetris with 99 other people on one arcade machine.
Whoa.
No, it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh.
Now,
the arcade game?
Now, here's the thing. It's not the arcade game, and it's not Turtles in Time.
Oh.
It is an entirely new game based on the 2013 CGI cartoon, which you and I talked about yesterday, and I told you that you need to get into that show because it's an amazing show for fans of the old Turtles.
Yeah.
But this game is a 4-player arcade beat 'em up.
Huh.
And it's it's very similar. There's actually a lot of throwbacks to the old Turtles in Time game. There's a sewer surfing level. There's very familiar bosses. Each of the stages now have a mini boss halfway through and a final boss. So instead of fighting Bebop and Rocksteady at the same time, you're fighting first Bebop, and then at the end of the level you'll fight Rocksteady. It ran smooth. It looked great. Foot soldiers are popping out of the sewer and throwing the sewer cap at you.
Nice.
So there's a lot of fun stuff, but it plays like a really good Konami old school arcade game. And it aggravates me at the same time because I'm looking at it and I'm like, why is this not being ported to home consoles?
Yeah.
Why is this only available in Dave and Buster's and GameWorks and just these in very limited quantities? So I'm thinking to myself, how hard could it be? This looks like you don't even have to include online, although that would be great if they did. But this, I mean, if you go to there's YouTube videos on it and stuff. But I mean, if you go to YouTube and check it out, just type in TMNT Dave and Buster's or something like that. You'll see it's a very, very good. It's a really good game, and the animation is smooth. It doesn't look terrible. I don't know. I had a lot of fun playing it. So
nice. That's awesome.
So that's what I played. Yeah, that's everything I played.
Nice. Cool. Christian, what about you?
Sure. Last week I played some Ape Out, which is like a Hotline Miami came out last week, Really liked it. Really enjoyed it. It's got this really neat freeform jazz type vibe, even though it's very frustrating. It's very difficult. I like that, but random enemy placement makes that frustrating. But if you want to learn more about that, you can read it on the site, GamerHeadsPodcast.com.
Yeah.
And I played Okami, so I put like 15 hours into Okami. I'm not as far as I wanted to be. I'm liking it so far quite a bit. I really like how the ink drawing mechanic lets you interact with the environment in a very interesting way, even though it's very frustrating because you have to kind of be a little more precise than I'd like you to be. Sometimes you don't really get the circle exactly how the game wants you to get the circle, and that's annoying. And it also takes a while to pull up the screen, draw the ink around, because you have to use the control stick and you have to be precise. It's got to be the right shape. And that's why I can see people like the Wii version so much, because that could be a lot faster. You can just pop in there, do a quick wrist motion, and then have that done with. And I can see how people say the Wii version is the definitive version in some sense. But this game is like everywhere now. Okami's everywhere. It's on Switch, it's on PS3, it's on Xbox 360, it's on Wii, it's on PS2, it's on PS4 and Xbox One, it's on PC. You can play it anywhere. And so far, I'm liking it, but I had to put it down because on Monday I got Octopath Traveler, and I have been focusing on Octopath Traveler. I want to finish it before Sekiro Shadows Die Twice comes out, which gives me another week, and it's going to be tough. It's going to give me a week and a half, I think, and it's going to be hard. I mean, I'm 18 hours in right now, and I'm enjoying it. It's not bad. It's a JRPG, like you guys, I'm sure, are aware. The stories are structured in a very frustrating format where you have to do each one at a time. So you got the 8 characters, and I've gotten all 8, and I've done all their chapter 1s. And it's just frustrating because I'm like, ooh, I like this one, and then don't really care about this one. Oh, this one is written very poorly. Oh, I hate this character's voice actor. I don't want to do this guy's stuff. And then I have to like go through all 8, and then I can finally move to chapter 2 after I grind a bunch in order to get up to a high enough level. And Octopath Traveler is a game that doesn't care about your time. It says, grind. I don't care what you have to say. This is the recommended level, and you're not there yet. Grind. Get to that level. And swap out the characters in your party because you got to get them all up to that level, because I don't care about your time. You're going to spend it playing Octopath Traveler.
Yeah.
And that is similar to a similar reason for why I wasn't too fond of Red Dead Redemption 2. It kind of kills the pacing for me. And I'm totally fine sitting back and grinding in a game if I want to kind of exceed and make the rest of the game significantly easier as a result. But as soon as grinding starts bleeding into the mandatory territory, that's where I start having more issues with it, because I like having difficulty in a turn-based RPG. I like going through the story and being faced with challenges that require me to use every last ability in an interesting way and be able to strategize around these enemies that I'm familiar with, instead of just running through and just mowing everything down because my numbers are a lot bigger because I spent 5 hours sitting there and fighting the same things over and over again.
Yeah. See, and it's funny they say, because I love I love grinding in video games. I mean, I love grinding in RPGs, because this is why I like RPGs as a genre, because I'm only as good as much time as I want to put into it. Mm-hmm. But I totally 100% agree with you on the fact that it is a grind fest in that game. Like, even to the point where I get a little frustrated with it because of the fact you can only have four characters, and it would be one thing if you could just play with those 4 characters and just, that's, the game, you're going to play with those 4 characters, but each character has their own chapter, which means you have to switch out the characters to get, all the chapters completed. Mm-hmm. That is very frustrating. That's why I liked, I want to bring it back to the Caligula effect. That's why I really liked that game, is because I did grind in that game, but I didn't feel like it was like, oh, you have to. It wasn't necessary. It was on my own accord. This is what I wanted to do. And it certainly paid off, because it was when I took on bosses, it wasn't as hard, but I'm just saying that it was my choice to do that. It wasn't something that I was forced to do. And that's, to me, I think that's the big difference between like an Octopath Traveler versus like a game like Caligula Effect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that Octopath Traveler was bad, because I really like that game a lot. But I'm just saying that is a flaw in that game.
Yeah,
I'll agree with that too. Yeah.
I've got a number of other problems that I've been having with it while I've been playing through it. Like the side quests, I feel like aren't as good as they could be, because I think we've kind of been spoiled by more Western side quest game design because of Witcher 3, which has kind of blown our expectations of what a side quest can be. And we've seen that trickle into things like Horizon Zero Dawn or Spider-Man even, where you've got these side quests that are very substantial in the story department, and they actually have a narrative in their own right. And that is kind of the case in Octopath Traveler. You got these little tiny bite-sized stories here and there, and some of them play out over the course of multiple side quests. Like you'll have side quest name 1 and then side quest name 2, where you follow a story for a little bit, but it's also in segmented chunks, which is frustrating. And also none of the stories really have a chance to breathe or flesh out the world in a meaningful way in this universe that feels very rote. And it feels like Octopath Traveler's world feels kind of like well-trodden ground at this point. I mean, it's your typical ogres, orcs, frogmen, and you're fighting them, and bats, and then you got your typical magic that you use, fire, ice, lightning, and you can get poisoned, and we've seen this in several games before, and at least as far as I've gotten, it hasn't gotten to a point where it feels very interesting to me. It's just, turn-based RPG that I can spend some time playing.
I like the boss fights in those though. I really like the fact that they made those bosses like huge. Like the scholar boss.
Yes.
Do you remember him? Yeah, that was he was awesome.
Yeah, I like the visual designs a lot.
Yeah,
I like
too.
I think it's a very good way of bringing pixel art to a more modern 3D era where kids look at something that's pixely and say, "Ew, that's gross. Why would you play that?" Like my little brother did with Minecraft. And I think it's a good happy medium where you keep that pixel sprite art character design while still having these gorgeous environments that have these nice little particle effects, even though there's some weird slowdown in spots which bother me. Like there's this one entrance to a castle, and for some reason the game just chugs right in that entrance to the castle. And I guess it's just because there's a lot of pixels there, but I feel like a Super Nintendo could have pulled that off just fine.
Yeah.
Which is very weird to me.
It is kind of weird.
But the game looks good.
The game does look good.
Game looks good.
Cool. Anything else?
Nope, that's it for me. My goal is to hopefully finish Octopath Traveler in the next couple weeks.
Nice. What are you playing Okami on?
I played it on PS4. I own it on PS3.
Okay.
And I meant to get to it there. But with the 1080p on PS4, that's where I preferred. Even though the frame rate's locked to 30 frames per second, which is a little frustrating. I wish it could, get to 60, because 60 is better in almost every instance, but I'm putting up with it.
Nice. For myself, outside of the Caligula Effect Overdose, the other game I've been playing is a little game called Trials Rising. Not a little game. It's a motocross bike game. I'm not really sure what they are, I guess, but I think they are, right? But sure. It's amazing. I love the game. Oh man, I'm really enjoying my time with it. So I got a funny story. When I picked it up, I went to go buy it, and I bought it at GameStop, and the guy said, "Have you ever played a Trials game before?" And I said, "No, I haven't." He said, "Oh, they're like really fun, but super frustrating, like to the point where you want to throw your controller across the room and smash it. Like that's how these games are." And he just kept going on how hard they are, and just like how like sometimes they're not very fun because they're just like complicated because you have to do a certain thing at a certain time. And I'm like, should I not buy this game? He wasn't selling it at all. And I said, "Did you play the Switch one?" "Oh yeah. What do you think?" "Oh yeah, it's okay." I was like, okay, well, I mean, I'm gonna get it, and I'm so glad that I did, because it is challenging and difficult at times, but really like fun. And just all the different crazy stunts you can do in the game, and just the different tracks you can race on are super fun. Mm-hmm. And in the customization, so like I love customization in games. I don't know why. This is like one of my things that I really love. And I really love the fact that you can customize your outfit that you're wearing and your bike, and you can put stickers all over your bike and your helmet and your shirts, and it's so cool. I don't know. And those listeners, if you are playing this game, there is a GamerHeads shirt that I created that you can go out in the store and get. I think it's like 168 gold, in-game gold currency for the shirt, so it's not that expensive either. But yeah, I mean, and so Christian and I were talking a little bit about the game before the podcast started, and one thing that he mentioned was that I've never played any of the Trials games before, and one thing that you mentioned, Christian, is how like a lot of the other ones, like they're mission based. You go play a level and you move on to the next one. Where this one, like each track that you open up, like there might be new contracts at that track that you have to do different stunts or different things to win those contracts. And I'm playing it on the Switch. But to me, I think that made it, the fact that you can go back to some of those tracks and play them differently, like try different things, actually made it much more fun for me because it gives it more replay availability, I guess.
Interesting.
But
instead of just like creating more tracks, they're just reusing the other ones?
Well, you do unlock new tracks, but they're like, I opened up, so like Ubisoft, if you join their club and you can buy with some of your gold, you can buy the Ubisoft contracts, so that way there'll be some of the tracks that you already beat, there's like, there's a new challenge at this track that you already beat, and then you go do that challenge to get whatever stuff that Ubisoft has to offer. Like there was one that I had to beat a certain character at a track, and if I did, I got like an Ubisoft t-shirt or a shirt that I can wear. So that's a rare item in the game, or a legendary item in the game, or something like that. They can only get through unlocking it through this contract. And so I went and played it, and I lost the first couple times, but I finally beat the character I'm supposed to beat, and I got the shirt, and I was like, yay!
Is it as frustrating as the employee tried to get you to believe?
No. Like, I mean, granted, I'm still early on in the game. I just picked it up like Thursday or Friday or something like that. So I'm not that far in the game. But the contracts that I played so far, I mean, have been really fun and not frustrating. So I would not say it's as frustrating as he said it was going to be.
One of the interesting things... I'm sorry, go ahead, Roger.
Well, I was just going to say one thing. I mentioned how I played on the Switch, so a lot of people asked, like, how is that compared to the PS4 or the Xbox? And I here's the thing, like, I'm very forgiving when it comes to gameplay, like on handheld consoles and such, because I grew up with Atari, so I think I'm much more forgiving than a lot of people are. But I think it's fine. But I did see some video of the PS4 version. I'm like, okay, yeah, that looks really good.
An interesting thing I heard about Trials on Switch specifically is that, especially on the later levels, you have to be very good at kind of utilizing the analog nature of your throttle. So, like, you don't always want to throttle all the way, yes, and you don't always want to just let go of the throttle. But on the Switch triggers, those are analog. Those aren't analog triggers. Those are digital. Have you noticed that kind of play into any of the levels that you've gotten to thus far, Roger? Or do you see that being an issue?
No, I mean, yes, the fact that you have to like pay attention to when you want to throttle down and when you don't. I have not seen it being an issue at all for me.
I get you.
It's just a learning curve of like when I should be, So the first couple tracks that I played, I always think to myself, I have to gun it as fast as I can. Well, that's not always the best option, right? Or there's one that you're riding on this roller coaster track, and I just let my bike take me all the way down, because if you hit gas, you're gonna like fly off the track. You're just gonna gun it right off the track. I don't hit the gas until about 2/3 down, and then I hit the gas, and then I, do my boost, and that way I'm also not flying so high in the air, because that's another thing. You don't really want to fly too high in the air unless you're trying to do tricks. And that's one of your contract challenges. But again, I didn't play it on the PS4 or the Xbox, so it's hard for me to say like, I can see the difference now. I can feel the difference. But for the Switch, I don't. To me, it hasn't been an issue at all. I mean, I think it's easy to play and it's easy to pick up. Challenging, yes, but not to the point where I want to throw my controller across the room.
Yeah. One funny thing that I noticed in addition to the controller thing is there's this person that I noticed talking about playing the game. Someone who's played a lot of Trials in the past. They were playing it on Switch, and they were talking about the only digital nature of the triggers. And the funny thing is that if you plug in a GameCube controller with a GameCube adapter into your Switch, that actually allows you to get the full analog trigger on the GameCube, which is very weird and fascinating that the GameCube controller has more functionality than the Switch Joy-Cons in terms of analog trigger control.
Yeah, that's weird. I guess. Yeah, I have a bunch of GameCube controllers, but I don't have the
adapter
at all. Yeah. So, but I mean, if you are, I don't know. I mean, if you're looking for something that's like kind of, I mean, not just kind of deep. I mean, I think this game is very deep. The two games that I've been the most impressed with Ubisoft have been this one and Starlink. Like, just so much content, and there's so much to do in the games, and it just kind of flew on the radar, both of these games. I think one thing that you mentioned to me, Christian, was with Trials Rising, was the fact that a lot of the hardcore fans of the Trials games are saying this is too, like, easy, not easy, but too mainstream, I guess, right?
Yeah, they restructured a lot of the game's typical progression in a way that's very akin to modern video game design.
Yeah. And to me, I think that's what makes it appealing to me. But I guess, I mean, I can see why people might, if you're fans of a certain genre, like Advance Wars, for instance, and some changes. I'm just kidding. If you're used to a certain genre or a certain way that the game plays, and then they change it up, I can see why you might be upset. But I think it's actually, for somebody that's never played a Trials game before, this is a very welcomed change, and I'm enjoying it a lot.
Awesome.
That's what I've been playing. So let's do this. Let's take a break, and then when we come back, we'll get into our hot topic. So stay tuned. And welcome back to GamerHeads. This week's our hot topics is, in honor of International Women's Day, we wanted to talk about who our top 5 female video game characters are of all time. So, Mike, why don't you start us off? We'll start off with number 5. We'll just go around the table. You'll mention 5. Christian and myself will mention our number 5, and then we'll keep going. So, Mike, start us off. Who is your number 5 female character of all time?
So my number 5 female character is Sakura from Street Fighter Alpha 2.
Oh,
nice.
And, moving obviously on in the other games that she was in. But, in playing Street Fighter 2, my go-to is always Ryu. And she, and I kind of like bonded with this character because she was, she looked up to Ryu and she's like, okay, I want to be like him. When I get older, so I'm going to start training and I'm going to do everything I can so I could be as good or better than him. And I just always enjoyed her story in the games, and even her style of gameplay. I really liked her running Shoryuken, and it's just like she had some different takes on classic Ryu moves, which I found like it's kind of like a breath of fresh air. So I always enjoyed playing as her on the Street Fighter games. So yeah, she was my number 5.
Nice. Yeah, I do enjoy playing her as well. I think that she's a fun character, and a lot of the same reasons that you mentioned. I enjoyed the fact that she has this determination, right, to do, like, to be better than Ryu. So I agree. She's an awesome character.
Cool.
Christian, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is Shell from Portal, because that's the main playable character, and she's just a complete blank slate. The fact that she is female is not dwelled upon at all, and you are able to give that character the psyche and the emotions and project yourself upon that character in any way that you deem necessary, and that is completely divorced from the fact that she is female. And I think that is very rare in video games, and I think that Valve, they should be commended for doing such a thing.
That is a good pick, Christian.
Thanks, Roger.
My 5th pick is Princess Zelda.
I gotcha. Damsel in Distress, one of the best.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I think for me, Princess Zelda has always Hansel. It's just I think the reason that I've always liked her is not so much from from the game itself, but from the cartoon of Zelda.
Oh yeah. Hey, that was going to be my question. I was going to say, so which iteration of Princess Zelda? Pirate Zelda, emotionally distressed Zelda from Breath of the Wild, but then you went with cartoon Zelda. No, that's very interesting. So why is that?
Well, she just had a very strong personality in the cartoon, and it was interesting because she always stood up to Link, and Link was kind of cocky, and she would try to impress on him like how important this is and blah blah blah. But I don't know, I just liked her. I liked her strong personality in a cartoon, and I wish that they would explain why this is called The Legend of Zelda when you have Link doing most of the work. Like, I wish there would be more about Zelda in the game, but I don't know. I've always liked Zelda. I always thought that she was a really cool character, and so
all right.
That's the reason I picked her as number 5. All right, Mike, what is your number 4 character?
Number 4 is going to be unbelievably cliche, but it is Lara Croft.
Okay.
Nice. Tomb Raider, when it first came out, when I first played it, I was just blown away by the gameplay and the puzzles. I remember there was one particular puzzle that I spent like 40 minutes on trying to figure out, and then all of a sudden I saw like some writings on the wall and it clicked, and I just felt like, I don't know, it was just such a great experience that of playing. And then of course, the storyline with her, and unfortunately the game's kind of dwindled in quality, but then when they rebooted it, that turned out to be like one of my favorite games, was the rebooted Tomb Raider.
Oh wow!
Like when Lara starts off as kind of like starts off as this the damsel in distress, and I gotta tell you, man, she gets beat to hell in this game. I feel bad. I feel really bad for her. But then as you get later on in the game, she like turns into John Wick. And I'm not even joking, because I'm blasting kneecaps and following up with headshots and everything. Like she just, like, the character has such an amazing arc and transforms throughout the entirety of this game that it really stuck with me throughout, even afterwards.
Nice. Yeah, she was going to be on my list of characters too. She just didn't make it. I almost had her on, and then she didn't make the cut. So, but I can see why she would be on your list. So nice. Christian.
My number 4 would be in the same vein as Valve. It will be Alex Vance in Half-Life 2. I really like her character, especially because she's in a video game that's so devoid of human life and like anything to grasp onto. Despite like having various NPCs here and there, they just don't feel like distinct human beings, whereas Alex Vance feels like this ray of sunshine, light, and hope in a dystopian future that is Half-Life 2. And I really like that about her. She's got this happy-go-lucky personality, and she just like completely ignores the circumstances, says screw it, and helps you through in ways that I feel like made me feel better while playing through Half-Life 2. And so, yeah, she's one of my favorites. Absolutely.
Nice.
Cool.
For myself, my number 4, Christian and I are going to say another damsel in distress, but Princess Peach.
Yeah.
But not Super Mario Brothers 1 Princess Peach. I'm talking about Super Mario Brothers 2 Princess Peach, where like you actually got to start playing her as a character. And I will tell you, she is the whole reason that I actually beat that game. Because the fact that she can kind of do that float jump.
That float, man, that's a lifesaver.
It is. I know. And I am not good at, like, jumpy areas. You can just ask my wife. Like, I get all, like, frustrated with jumpy games where you have to, like, land on certain platforms and such. But she made that game so much easier. And she is the true hero of Super Mario Brothers 2 for me.
Oh.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, what's your number 3, Mike?
My number 3 is the Master of Unlocking, Jill Valentine.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and with Resident Evil and even Resident Evil 3, but when in Resident Evil you get to choose between Chris's campaign and Jill's campaign. I always favored Jill's campaign over Chris's. I liked the more intelligent approach to certain parts of the game. Like, for example, with the giant plant boss fight. If you're playing as Jill, there's a part where you could just find some chemicals, mix them together,
yes.
and just put them in the roots of the plant, and you don't even have to fight that boss.
Yes. That was awesome.
Yeah. And I always just enjoyed, I found her character to be like just really, really, really cool, really fascinating. I loved the cheesy commentary in the game, the Jill sandwich and all that good stuff. And even in Resident Evil 5, when you actually had to fight against her, that's one of my favorite boss battles too. I loved, especially because I played that online with Brian from the show, and just like having to work together to save her. And I always felt so terrible when I accidentally shot her in the face, and I'm like, sorry, I'll restart it.
Oh, man.
So she's my number 3.
Nice. Christian, what's your number 3 character?
My number 3 would be similar to Alex Vance, someone that's very narratively driven. That's Elizabeth in BioShock Infinite. I really like that video game. It's another kind of dystopian future type situation, and Elizabeth is another kind of untainted, untouched lady individual that's stuck in this tower, and she's not exposed to this outside world. And as soon as you break her out of there, she's not only very helpful from a gameplay perspective, but you also get to see her perspective of everything while you're walking through these really cool environments. And then you also get to see the impact of all the screwed up stuff that's going on in the world have an impact on her, and see how kind of that psychologically wrecks her as a person. And I really liked her in BioShock Infinite because of that.
Yeah, that's an interesting... I have to go back to that game, because I started that game, and boy, that is a messed up game.
Yeah. I like messed up stuff, Roger.
I mean, just the weird world that those people created. How messed up is that?
You said it.
My number 3 is a character that I feel is probably the strongest character in Octopath Traveler, and she has the most interesting background and just the things that she goes through to get revenge, and that's Primrose.
Yes, absolutely. Oh man, I've always said my favorite character in the game.
Yep. I mean, she has a very dark story, and the hell that she went through to get revenge for her father is unbelievable. And just even her first boss fight that she had, was really powerful, and just kind of like, I don't know, big F you to
that is the best way to put it. That is the best way to put that. Yep.
Yeah. So I think Primrose is so awesome. She's such a cool character, and just a really strong character, and just somebody that I don't know, it's just you can't she won't go down. Like, she's just a strong character, so I really like her a lot.
Good choice.
Mike, what is your number 2?
My runner-up is the very, very capable, very strong-willed Isabel from Animal Crossing.
Yes, fishing pole.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. That's and Smash, man. Nothing. You got to steer clear of that, man, because that'll take you out. But in Animal Crossing, she can run the entire town. In fact, when the time comes, and it's not an if, it's a when statement. When you decide to leave your town and stop playing, she stays behind, and she's like, you know what, our mayor left, but I got this. I'm gonna take, except for the gardening, everything but the gardening.
Yeah.
But she's always in charge of the events. She's always giving you advice, telling you, okay, here's what she's going around taking a survey from all our residents. Here's what they're happy about. Here's what they're not happy about. Here's what I recommend we do. She's in charge of that town, man. She's the puppet master. She's pulling those strings. So.
Yeah, she is.
So yeah, she's my number 2.
Nice. Christian, what's your number 2?
My number 2 would be female shepherd or femme shep in Mass Effect. I like her a lot more than male shepherd, which is really weird because I played through Mass Effect 2 and 3 as a youngin', and I did it as male Shepard because I was like, oh, girls, why would I pick a girl? I'm a boy. I'm going to be the boy. And I never really connected to male Shepard. He's got this weird, monotonous voice that I feel is very hard for me to believe. I feel like he's a robot. Whereas with female Shepard, when I went back and played through 1, 2, and 3, I played as female Shepard. I liked her infinitely more. She made it significantly easier to invest myself in the circumstances. And I think the voice actress for her does an excellent job. And that's probably what kind of propels her character for me, is that she's got a huge range and she's believable as both like the paragon that wants to save the universe and the renegade that takes no nonsense and wants to get stuff done for her own good.
Yeah, that's a good pick, man.
Thanks,
Wow.
Roger.
My number 2 is somebody that, when it happened, it was like a game changer to me, I think. And it was like an eye-opening thing, and I just think this was such a great moment in video games, and that's when you find out that Samus is a female. And she takes off the helmet. Like, how powerful was that? You know, I just thought that was so cool that here you have this strong female character that, you know, all these, you know, boys were playing, and then when they found out it was a girl, I was like, what? Like, that was so cool. And she is so strong-willed and really powerful as a person, but also has like a heart. And I mean, just the way she handles herself in all the situations is just really amazing. So she's my number 2.
Yeah, no, that is a good pick, especially when was it Zero Mission, when you actually lose the suit.
Yeah.
And you have to get around just based on your wits alone. I thought that was really cool. It added a lot of depth to the character. I own Other M, but I haven't played it yet, and from what I understand that gives a much deeper backstory for her.
Yeah. All right, Mike, we're at number 1. Who is your number 1 female
Number
character?
1. So this character is, I played this game back in 2002 or 2003, and this character still resonates as my favorite, not just female character, one of my favorite video game characters of all time, especially, and I'll get to this in a moment, considering the age that the kind of society we were in when this game was released. But my number 1 of my favorite female video game character is Jade from Beyond Good and Evil.
Oh, she's great.
Yes, it was so cool to see this character just so different. And that's the thing, is that she was so different from other. She was a down to earth.
Mm-hmm.
She was a photographer, scientist, just a normal, decent, and I will say this, fully clothed female character in a video game. And especially what I mean by that is, at that time that game came out, we were still on getting towards the end of the extreme ideals of the late 90s, early 2000s, when everything was extreme. 2000, everything's crazy. And case in point, the year before Beyond Good and Evil came out, we were treated, and I'm using air quotes here, to a BMX game called BMX XXX that featured topless bike riders.
Yeah.
So just to give you an idea of just the kind of mindset that that society was in at the time, and just to see that totally different, totally flipped around with this character and with her relationship with Paige, and the character was just so well developed and such an amazing character. She's definitely got my number 1.
Nice.
Yeah, that's an amazing pick. Yeah, she wouldn't feel out of place in a video game today. That game was way ahead of its time as far as the protagonist was concerned.
Yep.
Nice. Good pick, Mike.
Thank you.
Christian, what's your number 1 pick?
My number 1 would be from what I say is my favorite video game of all time, and that's Metal Gear Solid 3. Ooh. My favorite character in that game is Big Boss, who is your kind of your mentor. And in typical Japanese story fashion, she's like this typical archetype of like the grizzled veteran, but she kind of turns gender norms on their head by being a female character and having like her character be defined by a relationship that's not a romantic one. It's an apprentice and master relationship between herself and you, the main character. And I think that is just fantastic. It leads to some very cathartic moments, and it makes her this very interesting character for reasons that are completely inconsequential to her gender. And I feel like that's a great pinnacle of females in video games and what I'd like to see out of, women going forward in video games. And I really like her as a result.
Yeah, nice.
Good
pick too. My number one pick is all my characters have been like very strong female like protagonist. Or the reason I like them is because they define odds, I guess, if you will. Mm-hmm. And Aloy is my
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah.
So here's somebody that was cast aside, right, and like wants to find out who she is and what she's about, and not only that, but she like is inquisitive and figures out things and like is not willing to take things as they are. Is like, no, this isn't right. This is not how things should be. And she takes it upon herself to figure out what's going on, even against everybody else's like recommendation, even her father type figure that raised her. She's willing to stand up for what she believes in, and that's awesome. So I really like her as a character, and she was a great addition to the PlayStation. The very few mascots that they have. But she's a great addition to that pantheon of characters that they have.
Did you see, Roger? Did you get far enough in the game to see what her origins are?
I am right to the point where she's doing the trials. So
doing the trials, I gotcha. I find her origin story is very interesting because not only, it's a bit cliche as far as origin stories go, but it's very thematically significant as far as the very matriarchal society in Horizon Zero Dawn is concerned. And that's why I really liked her as kind of like a pinnacle of the thematic statement that Horizon Zero Dawn is making.
Yeah. So I will say, I'm not very far. I have to go back to that game because I started playing it and then I had to move on to other things. I need to go back to that game, but just the way she stood up for herself against the odds, and even from a little kid, right? Like, to even find that technology was amazing. She was just like, it was like, you can't do that. She's like, why? like this is ridiculous. Like, why do we? She questions everything, and that's awesome. Listeners, what are your favorite female characters? You can let us know. You can send us a tweet at GamerHeadsPC. You can also send us an email, info@gamerheadspodcast.com. You can also go online at gamerheadspodcast.com, and then you can go to facebook.com/gamerheadspodcast as well. All right, before we go then, let's go around and tell people how they can get a hold of you. So, Mike, how can people get a hold of you?
You can find me on Twitter at TCThrowers. You can also check out the Controller Throwers podcast right here on GamerHeadsPodcast.com. And please check us out at twitch.tv/TCThrowers.
Nice. And Christian, how can people follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Christian Kabza, or you can read my reviews on GamerHeadsPodcast.com, NewGameNetwork.com, and PushSquare.com.
Nice. And listeners, as I mentioned, you can follow us on Twitter at GamerHeadsPC. That's probably the best way to get a hold of us. But you can also go to Facebook.com/GamerHeadsPodcast. Continue the conversation. We'd love to continue the conversation with you. You can go to GamerHeadsPodcast.com, become a member there, and you can leave comments on all our articles out there. And let us know what your thoughts are. And then, as Mike said, we also do have a Twitch channel as well. So follow us there. We'd love that. Our channel is twitch.tv/GamerHeadsPodcast. One last plug I'll say is if you do love the show, please tell your friends about our show. We would love to have more listeners in the conversations, to have more conversation around the topics that we talk about. That's the whole reason we created this podcast. So tell your friends, and so we can have a community that we can have these discussions, a safe community where we can have these discussions. That's the whole premise behind this podcast. And then also go to iTunes, which is going to be in the link in the show notes. Will be a link that you can go to iTunes and leave us a review, even if it's just giving us a star or 5. We appreciate it. So, all right, Mike, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And Christian, thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
And listeners, once again, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. We really appreciate the time that you take out of your busy schedule to give us a listen. Until next week, make the right choices and keep gaming. See ya.
So long.
Bye.